Hello everybody, my name is Zeke. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be something that I haven't really done before, but that I will explain how I got to this point of wanting to make this video in a second. But I'm going to be comparing kind of some books that I've read that I've enjoyed that have lower ratings on Goodreads. What I'd say is a lower rating is anything kind of below a 3.8, just because I feel like Goodreads, it skews very high. Most books have just higher ratings. I'd say if it's above a 3.8, I think that's kind of normal. And personally, I don't think like my rating scale is necessarily, I think I'm pretty positive in general. I'm pretty generous, but I also think that I might be less generous than the average Goodreads reader. And so kind of how I think about rating books is 5-star, like gonna think about forever, changed my life, gonna want to reread in the future even if I never actually do. 4 stars is something I loved, I thought it was great. 3 stars is something that I thought was good, but I had some issues with it here and there, or it just was good but nothing special. 2 stars is like definitely pretty bad, or things I might have enjoyed some things in it, but overall was pretty just underwhelmed by the experience. And then I never give books 1 star, but a 1 star would be like, this offended me in some way, or this is like just so bad that it deserves to be something that I have wiped from my memory and pretend I've never read before. So I think that's like my general rating scale. So that should just give some perspective as I talk about different books, kind of what my thought process is and how it kind of compares to the average rating on Goodreads. Now, the way I got to this is I have many issues with Goodreads. I think as a platform, it definitely serves its purpose for kind of logging what books you've read, reviewing them, whatever, but there's just a lot of technical issues, but I still kind of use it for that purpose just because there are other options, but I find it's the most easy for me to just rely on, even though I should move over. There's like something called like, I think Storybook or something that is probably much better. I don't know, I just use Goodreads. And I was making my June wrap-up video last week, and I was kind of going through all the books I read in the past month, and I was just looking at some of the average ratings, and I don't know, I think it's just interesting to look at them. They're often just not what I expect, and I thought it would be interesting this video. I have 5 books I'm going to talk about, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what I think people wouldn't like about them and why I think they might have these lower ratings, and then I'll tell you why I disagree. Or, I mean, obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but I'll just explain kind of why, even though people may not have liked it for this reasons, I still did. And I will maybe recommend them for very specific people, just because if they have low ratings, I mean, that means that people probably generally don't like them. So I'm not delusional. I'm not just going to say everyone should read every one of these books, but I'm definitely going to try to find the target audience in this video. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam, and this is a book that has a 3.18 rating on Goodreads, which is very, very, very low. Especially this book is pretty popular. It has like, I think like 12,000 ratings, which is not the most popular, but for that amount of ratings to have that low of an average rating is pretty insane. I give this 4 stars. In this book, we basically follow this family who's in Long Island. They rented this house for vacation when all of a sudden this family's white and this black couple who own the house come back, and they're like, basically, there's an apocalypse going on, something bad is happening, we need to stay here with you. And it's a very weird book, and I think that's why it probably isn't much beloved by people. This came out during the pandemic, so it kind of, I feel like one reason people may not have loved this was because of fatigue from that. It's about people trapped inside a house, and it's not very exciting. It's an apocalypse book, or a like catastrophe, something bad's happening book, but we don't leave this house, and this is the entirety of the book. It's just these people interacting with each other, interacting with the house, trying to figure out kind of what's going on, but that's not like the main focus of the book, and they don't ever really leave or do anything. It's not plot focused at all, and that could be boring. I understand that. But personally, I just thought it was a really interesting exploration of these interactions between the characters, what people do when things are going wrong. There were lots of like little weird bits in it that I just found interesting, and I think it was just very unique, and I liked how different it was from what I was expecting, and also just anything I'd ever read before. It's a very strange book. I'd only recommend it if you're like willing to be bored and you're not necessarily looking for a heavy plot. But if you're looking for kind of a very low-key book like this with this kind of premise, then I'd say it's a great option, and I hope you enjoy it more than most people do. And yeah, so that's number one. The next book I want to talk about is Death in Her Hands by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is an author I've read a lot from, and she's very controversial. There's lots of mixed opinions on her. I have my own mixed opinions on her. I love some of her stuff. I think some of it's just okay. But I find it very impressive. A lot of her books really impress me with specific aspects for whatever reason. And this has a 3.26 star rating on Goodreads, which is also very low. I also give this 4 stars. And this is kind of a weird murder mystery-esque story, but that's another theme I've noticed with these books. It's when they kind of take this concept and make it very low stakes. People don't seem to like that. So with Leave the World Behind, that was like the apocalypse, end of the world scenario. People probably didn't like how it was low key. This is like the same thing, but with a murder mystery plot. We're following this older female character, which I think is unique. You don't see a lot of those in murder mysteries in general. I mean, I don't read a lot from the genre, but just from my knowledge. And also, it's just a very unique tone and atmosphere. And just seeing inside this character's mind, she's going through a lot. We see kind of these these images of her mind that are kind of weird, and you don't really know what's going on. She doesn't really know what's going on. She's trying to find things out, and we're kind of just following this along for the ride. But once again, not a lot of action, not a lot happening, and it can be boring at some points, definitely. But I just really liked how different it was once again, and I didn't really mind the low stakes energy, and there ends up being a twist at the end that I don't think was necessarily super surprising, but I just liked how it was executed, and I just enjoyed reading the book and just enjoyed this main character. And I think if you're once again looking for something more low stakes, but with this premise sounding interesting, then I would definitely consider reading it, even though it has such a low rating on Goodreads. Next up is probably the least surprising pick on this list. That's The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, this has a 3.43 rating on Goodreads, which is definitely not as low as the previous two, but it's still pretty low. And personally, I didn't rate this, but that's just because sometimes I have a hard time rating classics, because, I don't know, it's just, I definitely usually end up having critiques of them, at least what I've read. But at the same time, I don't always feel fair critiquing them, because most of the time the critiques I have are because they were written in a certain time, or because of the writing style being unique to a specific time. And so I don't always feel like I should be factoring that in. So I just don't rate them. And sometimes when I have thoughts like that, and that's definitely the case with this. This is a classic with, the writing is definitely can be tricky at times, and I think that's probably why people don't like this. Also, I feel like classics on Goodreads generally have lower ratings. Does not surprise me. A lot of people don't like to read classics because they can be boring, and I guess that could be the case with this, but personally, I think The Scarlet Letter is so much fun. I mean, not fun, it's really depressing, but I just had a great time reading this, honestly. And in this book, we follow Hester Prynne. She's been accused of adultery, and she has this baby, Pearl, and they're kind of living life in this town after this event, and she has a big red A on her chest that marks her guilt. And we just see her in her life after this, and also interacting with people around town, going through her own internal struggle, interacting with her daughter. Her daughter is very unique in a lot of ways, and also interacting with the man who she committed adultery with. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it, but I definitely understand the writing might not be for everyone. So I'd say if you're willing to kind of sit down and work through your reading and are okay with sometimes reading things that you might have to be a little more active and a little more attentive while you're reading, I would definitely recommend this. I think it's a great classic. Definitely understand why people don't like it, but also think that it doesn't deserve that low of a rating and that people would enjoy this if they gave it a chance. Next up, I have the opposite. I have the most surprising one on this list because I really love this book and I don't really know why people wouldn't like this. This is If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. This is a translated book about these young women in Korea. They all live in the same building, in the same kind of community, and they all are obsessed with beauty in some way. And it's very depressing because you see a lot of them go to extreme lengths to kind of change themselves to fit in or to kind of conform to what they want in life or what they think they want in life. And we also see a really tough, some tough economic situations that are not fun to watch or read about, but I just think it's a really interesting exploration of beauty standards. Also, I think the relationships between these women are so powerful and so fun to read, just them living their lives and interacting with each other. I think it's very fun. And I guess maybe, I don't really remember, but I know this is translated, and I know sometimes people find translated writing less engaging to read. I don't know if that's the reason. Personally, I didn't have that issue at all. I just enjoyed it a lot. I don't know why people wouldn't like this, really. I guess maybe also the ending isn't fully satisfying. We kind of just cut off at a certain point. But personally, I feel like that really fits the book. And I still really enjoyed this, even if people didn't love it as much. It still has a higher rating, it's 3.75, but I just feel like this is a book I would expect a lot more people to love. It sounds like a book a lot of people would love, and the fact that it only has a 3.75 really surprises me in that regard, and I really love this, and I think basically anyone who wants to see, if this premise sounds interesting, I can't really think of anything in the book specifically that would turn you away from it. And I just really recommend it. Okay, this last one is an honorable mention that I'm definitely pushing a little bit because it doesn't have that low of a rating. It has, I think, a 3.85, which is above the 3.8 mark. But that's the Starlight C by Erin Morgenstern. And this is honestly, there's something about this book that really did it for me. A lot of people know Erin Morgenstern from her other book, The Night Circus, which I've also read, and I did not like The Night Circus at all. I don't give a lot of books 2 stars. I give The Night Circus 2 stars. I felt like nothing happened in it, and that's really funny to me because this book literally could not tell you what happened. I read this 2 or 3 years ago. It's not very plot focused at all. I remember bits and pieces of the plot, but I don't really remember specifically what the plot was about. I just remember the atmosphere and kind of the world building around this being really interesting. It's about doors into weird places and this secret order and library, and I don't know. And we have this main character who's going to school, and he kind of stumbles onto this other world, and it's just a journey, I think. And I think that even though not a lot happens, I feel like you don't go into a book like this really looking for a huge plot, and it really is just about the atmosphere and being carried away in the writing. I think the writing is another beautiful part of this. And what surprises me, though, is that people will love The Night Circus and then turn around and not like this. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, because I disagree. I think the opposite. And I don't know, just something that was interesting to me. And this really doesn't count. I just wanted to talk about this book. And I would definitely recommend this if you're looking for something that just is going to feel very fairy tale-esque, is really going to carry you away, capture your attention, and transport you to another world. But you do have to keep in mind that the plot is not going to be the main focus, and you have to be okay with that if you're going to enjoy this book. Otherwise, would not recommend it at all, because there's not a whole lot going on, and I understand why people don't like this one, but I really do like it a lot, and I want more people to read it and enjoy it, and we'll see if that is helpful or changes anyone's opinion, even though it probably won't. But yeah, that's the last one I'm going to talk about. So that's the video. Those are the 5 books that I was just looking at Goodreads average ratings of, didn't agree with them, wanted to share my opinion and tell people that they were wrong. I'm over-exaggerating. Obviously, if you don't like any of these books, your opinion is completely valid. As I said, for all of them, there are reasons, I think, to not like all these books. I just don't agree with them. But I hope this maybe convinced you to check out some books that you've been looking at that you haven't wanted to pick up because of low average Goodreads ratings, and also maybe encourage you to not pick up books based on their average Goodreads ratings, because you never know if you'll end up enjoying something that other people may not. And I just think it's a good exercise to not just trust the internet and not listen to everyone else's opinions when we're reading books, and kind of just enjoy what we enjoy and read what we want regardless of what other people think, for the most part. Don't take that too literally, but just enjoy what you enjoy, read what you want, and don't put too much stock in Goodreads ratings. So that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you want. I try to post videos once a week. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, and I will see you in the next one.